what I realized when I was in Africa was what these women had is what so many women in Australia, in America, the women that I coach with are desperate for, which is connection. All right, so I've been back from my trip now for almost 2.5 weeks, and I wanted to share with you some of the insight that I gained from working with Fox Club Project, and I also want to share with you too the 6 ways that you can expand your business mindset. So this is a fun podcast. I talk a lot about sustainable NGO work, the women in Rwanda, how they've completely changed my life, and given you some tips from the women of Rwanda to help you expand your business mindset. I hope that you enjoy. Hello, everybody. Well, it's me, and I am back from Africa, and boy, was that an absolutely amazing trip. I'll make sure to link the podcast that I put up while I was in Africa, kind of explaining what I was doing. But essentially, I was working with a nonprofit called Fox Club Project, which the whole emphasis of Fox Club Project is about empowering and not enabling. And I think I might have to do a podcast at some point or a blog post or something about sustainable NGO work. But I can tell you right now that there's not a lot of sustainable NGO work, but there is a growing consciousness around sustainable NGO work. And that is less about putting our perception of what people need onto them and more about listening to what people need and then helping them find pathways to get it. It doesn't sound very ironic or very complicated, but I think in an NGO work field, it is. And there was a lot of enlightenment that I found too when I was in Rwanda, just about the perceptions of Africans, the perception of developing countries. So much to talk about, because I think as we continue to be consumers of travel and adventure and the idea of what I kind of refer to as like a show pony tour, where we're bussed around or carted around and we're just putting these situations that look good on PowerPoints or look good on Instagram or Facebook, but really there's no connection, like true, authentic connection. That's what I would like to see change, because these are people's lives. And if we don't honor those people's lives in a really mindful and humanistic way, we start to exploit them for our own good and for our own liking. And I think there's a lot of well-intended organizations and groups who are doing work overseas. But I always think it comes back to, if that was you and people were showing up in a bus or they were coming to your house and building something or giving you something, is it A, what you'd want? B, would you want your face put all over social media or PowerPoints or used as propaganda for attracting money? And C, are you okay with people just coming in and coming out? And if you are, how would you want that to look? What I've learned a lot from Rwanda is, first of all, that we're so much more connected than we think that we are. And the moment that we start using, I guess, our leverage in kind of a, quote, developed country going into a, quote, developing country, we need to be very careful about how we partner in that situation and how culturally sensitive we are, and also how humanistic we are. And I actually think when I look back on my time in Rwanda, we're much more connected than we think that we are. Yes, our lives may look different, but our dreams and hopes and goals are often very similar in this foundational principle. Like, we want our children to go to school. We want our children to be safe. We want our children to be healthy. You know, we want to have access to the basic human needs. We want to feel fulfilled. We want to feel connected. We want to feel loved. We want to feel heard. We want to feel seen. All of the things that the women in the self-help groups that we worked with Fox Club spoke of those things. And many of the coaching clients that I work with also speak of those things. They just look different. And so when we strip back what we think people are, or we think how they're going to show up, or we think how they should live, and we listen to what they're saying to us, we find a lot more human connection. Not that I wasn't expecting it, but it was so simple. I guess what I'm trying to say is that so much of what we want is actually quite simple, and we overcomplicate it. The other thing that was amazing to me too was in the groups. So these groups are started with 20 women. They're homogenous in location, as in they're in a village and they're 20 women from the group. And then they're even more homogenous when it comes to income level. So when they form these groups, they don't pick people who are higher income earners and then put them with lower income earners, which is kind of the Western model. Like, we're going to blend everyone together to make it heterogeneous because then there's all these opportunities for a lot of, cross sharing of ideas through different income levels or education levels. What they have found actually is the opposite of that. When you have a heterogeneous group, it tends to be imbalanced in power. Whereas if you have a homogeneous group, where you have people that have similar income levels, etc., you actually have more success because they're on the same playing field, which I thought was interesting. As a teacher, someone who was in education, learning education, probably about 10 years ago, there was a push to more heterogeneous. And now there's not necessarily a pushback in education, but a consciousness on my level of the power of homogeny. So I think it's definitely contextual, but the homogeny, what I found was interesting was in my own friend group. Do I have an homogenous friend group? Do I have a group of people in my life that are like-minded, that are truly like-minded, that are homogenous in thought, homogenous in dreams, goals, aspirations, etc.? Or am I more heterogeneous? Because what I saw in these groups in Rwanda is the homogeny allowed them to connect because it was equal. And with that homogeny came the on-ground local Rwandan support of basic skill acquisition for the group. So this group often talks about how when they first started, they were the poorest of the poor. They didn't have the ability to have health insurance, didn't have the ability to put their kids into school. They didn't have soap or salt or oil or sugar. A lot of just very basic, like just basically living day to day to get food. Once they're put into these groups, what you see in 12 months is insane. Like, it is totally insane. And what I realized when I was in Africa was what these women had is what so many women in Australia, in America, the women that I coach with are desperate for, which is connection. It's absolute connection. It's not even, I want more money or more this. Yes, they do want to have that. But what they talk about the most is the fact that they're seen, they're heard, they're connected. They have a group of women who have their back, who go out in the village and find them if they don't come to their weekly meetings. They have a commitment for life. They commit to these groups for life. And they feel so much better and of themselves. When we did the group formation, when they started the groups, the women versus the women who had been in a group for 12 months, yes, the group that had been in the group for 12 months had more money, but it wasn't just that. It was like their whole soul was alive. And I sat there and I thought, okay, it's very interesting that what has been one of the most pivotal changes for these women has been basic skill acquisition of microlending and saving and reinvesting. That's basic. Anyone can learn that. But what really changed them was connection. What really changed them was a commitment to community. What really changed them was showing up every day. And you know what? I'm going to raise my hand right now and say, I don't know if I have a tribe of 20 women around me that are just mine, I check in and check out and I'm diligent in that process. I don't know if I can say that. And I don't know if many of you can say that either. So one of the things I would say to you if you're listening to this podcast is, do you have a homogenous group of friends? It doesn't have to be 20 women. Maybe it's 4 or 5. Are you committed to nourishing those relationships and making time for that connection? Are you showing up to serve other women? Are you being seen and heard in your life? And if you're not, why aren't you creating that opportunity? And the other thing I want to say to you too, because I have a lot of people on here who listen, who are business owners or entrepreneurs or have a quote side hustle, end quote. And I just wanted to give you 6 ways to expand your business mindset from these women. These women, literally, I'm not kidding you, sometimes would have 4 Australian signs to their name. And they have learned so much in 12 months by being part of this group and also by learning the skills that they've learned from the on-ground support with microlending and leadership development, which is just basic skills, and it's only for 6 months. And then some of those women then go on and take leadership roles in like what they call village association. They start committees, they start youth groups, they start children's groups, they start groups for mediation between husbands and wives, they start liaising with leadership. This is all on their own back. These women have a space in these self-help groups that cost 30 Australian dollars for the rest of their life. And them stepping into leadership is totally their choice. So as I sat with these women in the hills of Rwanda, in old huts in Rwanda with no electricity, on hills with lightning and thunder in the background, on benches, I mean, everywhere. It was just incredible. And I listened 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 because that's what I wanted to do. I wasn't there to make my life look good on Instagram. I was here to listen to the humanity of other people and to learn from them, and I have. So here are 6 ways that you can expand your business mindset that I've learned from the women of Rwanda. First is you need to define success for yourself. So when we were in Rwanda, there were groups that were saving 100 Rwandan francs a week. There were groups that were saving 200. There were groups that were saving 1,000. It was totally defined by their own definition of success and what they could attain. And I think that that is a really key aspect to their success, because if they went into a group and they had 50 Rwandan francs their name, and they were said, to be successful, you need to save 1,000, that would feel like an insurmountable task. But what they do is they say, okay, everyone in this group, for example, has 50 Rwandan francs. What is a reasonable amount that you guys can save every week? And then they re-evaluate that as they continue on as a group. So, for example, there was a group that was together for 2 years, only saved 100 Rwandan francs, and that's all they could save. That's all they wanted to save. And then there are other groups that had been together for 2 years that were saving 200 to 500 Rwandan francs a week. Success is defined for yourself. And the moment that we start to hit a success marker that is someone else's, we lose track. The moment that we start placing a success marker on someone else that's unattainable for them and we're not looking at their baseline, it also does not lead to success. Success is for yourself. Number 2, have vision mileposts which you advance towards in your own time. So we were at this village, and Kelly with Foxglove said, I'm really nervous about this village because when we were here 12 months ago, they were just really desolate. They were one of the poorest villages that Kelly had been in. And she said, I just don't even know what's going to happen. I have no idea how this village is going to look in a year's time. And when we went there, oh my goodness, it was like out of control energetic. The women were so excited. They were up telling their stories. There's women pulling rabbits out of hats and guinea pigs, and women learning how to knit. We'd never seen anyone knit in any of the villages that we had. Women repairing solar panels on their house so they could do hairdressing. Like, they just took this opportunity of community and basic skills and went for it. And the community facilitator said to us, she was so amazing. She goes, we have the goal of saving 200 Rwandan francs and then 500 Rwandan francs per week, but that's not going to be today and that's not going to be tomorrow. It will take time. I thought, oh my gosh, how amazing is that? You know what? Right now we're saving 200 or 150 and our goal is 500, but I'm not putting pressure on that. That's our goal and we're going to work towards that, but it's not going to happen today and it's not going to happen tomorrow. And I'm totally okay with that. How many times do we give ourselves permission to say, my goal is to do this, but I'm okay that it's not there right now? We don't give ourselves permission for it. We live in angst all the time that we're not making more, that we're not doing more. And when she just embodied that, it was like, that's awesome. So you're grateful for what you have. You're enabling the success that you've got right now. And at some point, you'll get to that 500 Rwandan francs or whatever vision you have. But it reminded me of this idea that we have to work in seasons and we have to work in mileposts. So maybe the 500 breaks down in 50 Rwandan franc increments. Maybe you want to build your business to turn over $100,000, a year, and that might take you 3 to 4 years. But the point is that we can't get so hyper-focused on one long-term vision that we forget the mileposts along the way and that we forget that we're human along the way as well. Number 3, be mindful with your money and know your finances. These women are better. I'm truthful about that. They are better at managing their money than probably I am. Every single week they have a money book. They come in, they write down how much money they've put in. They have loans. They agree upon a repayment plan that they have to repay the loan in. Like, it is tight. And I think the thing too for us, especially as women, when it comes to finances, there's always a bit of fear. I'm one that's around that. And 2, especially as entrepreneurs, know your finances, know your sums. Are you putting money away for retirement? Are you saving any cash? Or are you just dumping it all into your business? Be really mindful with that and set some realistic saving targets for yourself that you know are attainable, but that aren't going to stretch you too much where you feel like you're not going to be successful. Number 4, don't do this journey alone. I talked about it a lot. It's very easy as an entrepreneur, even as women in general, to feel like you're actually connected on Facebook or Instagram, and you're not. In Brene Brown's book, she talks about, in the book called Braving the Wilderness, and it's interesting because I had read almost the whole book, and then I brought it, and then at the end of the time in Rwanda, I finished the last 2 chapters, which were all about connection. And she says, the lie of social media is that you're emotionally connected. You're not actually emotionally connected. Social media, Facebook and Instagram can spark connection or spark networking, but you need to show up face to face. You need to show up and breathe the same air. You need to show up to cultivate those friendships. So don't journey this life alone. Find someone, find 1 or 2 people, get yourself into a community organization, show up. For some reason, we find this so laborious in the Western world, where we just want to have superficial connections and conversations online or in Facebook. And honestly, they just leave you feeling so empty. So make sure that if you are building a business online or you're feeling isolated at home, get out and get to know people. Number 5, embody joy and share it widely. I cannot tell you how amazing it was to see the women dance, to see the women welcome us, to see the women at church just totally embody their faith, to see the women raise their hands and just want to share their stories about how much their lives have changed in the last 12 months, how their marriages have been better because they can bring money in. They just had so much joy and so much pride as to what they had accomplished, and they did not at all fall into the Aussie term tall poppy syndrome, which if you're American or somewhere else, basically that everyone needs to stay the same level. That's not the truth. They all were rising up. But what I noticed about this was they embodied joy and shared it wildly and their success. But by point number 6 is be proud of your achievements and be vocal in celebrating others. So not only did they share their joy, did they exude their joy, were they open and warm and just so physically open, just hugs and handshakes, and there was just no boundaries around their joy and their love. And it wasn't in a bad way. It just was that they were so gracious and so grateful that we were coming and just so grateful to share their stories. But number 6 is that they were totally proud of what they did and they celebrated others. It was a space like I hadn't seen before, where people were truly embodied in their celebration of what they had done. They were just like, look at me. Now I have 8 rabbits and 10 chickens and my kids are going to school, but they didn't have any ego in it. And it was really, really challenging because I've never seen that before. I'd only ever seen women cower down, or I'd seen women inauthentically rise into a space where, they said that they weren't competitive, but you knew that they were riding in their ego. Or I've just seen women in their egos, where there's a definite power dispersion. There was just absolutely none of that in this situation. None. And I remember very, very wildly, we met this woman at like a community facilitator or like a village association meeting, and she was so excited and she was talking so fast. And the interpreter said, slow down, slow down, slow down. You're talking too fast. I can't interpret fast enough. She was just so excited about what she was doing. And she was part of the youth self-help group committee. And so these women had now started youth self-help groups, which model similar teachings off of the female self-help groups, because they realized that the youth needed help. So they had this group of all these youth. They were just absolutely kicking goals. Like, they were saving so much money. They were taking massive loans. They were just really, really rising as youth. And all of a sudden, in the very back corner, I could see her. And she was not hiding. She wasn't hiding intentionally, but she was in the back of the room, just watching with pride these youth share their stories, because she had started a youth self-help group. And it wasn't about her cowering. It wasn't about her reducing herself. It was just about her saying, my space is to just hold space for these youth. My space is just to be here, be present, and let them step forward into their own light, and I will just be a steward of this space. And watching that is one of the most, I think, humble and generous and authentic things we can do. We need to be embodied in our joy, and we need to share our successes and be really proud of what we do and not feel like we need to keep ourselves small, or that we're being egocentric, or that we're being chauvinistic, or that we're being over the top. in saying that, we also need to use that excitement to celebrate others with genuine and love for what they're doing as well. And when you can nail that, you expand so beautifully. And that's exactly what I saw with the women in Rwanda. So that is kind of some tips that I have gained from my time in Africa. The organization I went through is called the Fox Club Project. And if you're interested in supporting a woman for 30 Australian dollars, you can do. I'll put the link in the show notes for this, or you can simply go to Fox Club Project and donate to the Grassroots Rwanda campaign. Honestly, it's incredible what's happening there. The trip completely changed my life. It shook me at the core. It enlightened me in ways I never expected. And it won't be the last time that I go. So thank you guys so much for listening. I hope that gave you some tips. And yeah, if you have any questions about this, please ask me. I'm more than happy to talk about it. Thank you for joining me today. If you'd like more information about myself, my journey, my public speaking engagements, or life coaching with me, please head to my website, mishpope.com. If you can kindly leave me a beautiful review on iTunes, I would be forever grateful. I can't wait to connect again in the next episode.